So the learning today is dedicated for Refuah Shlema, our friend, Tani, Yitzchak Shalom ben Sarah Zehar. May have Refuah Shlema. And we continue, we started last week the Halachot of Lechem Mishneh, two loaves of bread. We went mainly the sort of psukim, we saw how we learned from the man. Here it says that they collected 2 loaves of bread. We saw an argument of the Rishonim of Rashi and the Rashba. We need 2 loaves of bread as a Doraita, or is it more rabbinical? So these ideas. And we also saw a question, when we have the two loaves of bread, we have to cut both of them, or is it enough to cut one of them? That's general idea we saw last week. We didn't go into details. What we'll do this week is we'll go into Shulchan Aruch, page Ein Daled 274, and we'll go through the Seifim. Then afterwards we'll go into maybe questions we see sometimes more often. I'll give an example with a question we have many times. Let's say we forgot to buy Lechem Mishneh. We forgot to buy 2 loaves of bread. It happens every now and then. And we realize in the freezer we have a frozen bread. And we use the frozen challah. Happens, right? So almost every week. Can we use the frozen challah? Can we use a sliced bread? A sliced bread is bundled together in a bag. Is it considered one bread? Or even more than that. Let's say if I don't have two whole loaves of bread, can I just take 2 pieces of bread and say, this is my Lechem Mishneh? Bagel. A bagel is actually a bread. Bagel. Can I take 2 bagels? Yeah. Or bagel sliced. Sometimes here, I'm not sure if you can get it here, but in the States you get the pre-sliced bagels. Right. So these are some questions we'll go into today. First we'll go over the Shulchan Aruch, and then we'll go into some of them. Okay, so that's nice addition of English Hebrew. Yeah. You have. It stops exactly. Yeah, okay, so it's the next audio. Yeah. Okay, so I can open something else. The last one. Yeah, so in 274, Reish Ein Daled, and this is we'll read the Shulchan Aruch inside, I'll translate it to English, and then we'll go into other questions. Shulchan Aruch doesn't mention. Shulchan Aruch says, "B'tzia shtei kikarot shlemot," or it takes 2 loaves of bread. The Ramah here adds the word shlemot, 2 whole loaves of bread. It's interesting. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't mention 2 whole. It just says he takes 2 loaves of bread. Does it mean you don't need whole loaves of bread? We'll discuss it later. So he holds both of them in his hands. And he cuts the bottom one. Okay, so he holds 2 loaves of bread, like this, and then he cuts the bottom one. The Ramah, Moshe Israelish, the Ashkenazi, writes, "V'davka b'leil Shabbat, only on Shabbat night, take 2 loaves of bread, and you cut the bottom one. But b'yom Shabbat, on Shabbat day, Shabbat morning, or b'leil Yom Tov, on Yom Tov night, b'tzia eluna, you cut the top one." Okay? And what's the reason? It's a Kabbalistic reason. So for Kabbalistic reasons, on Shabbat night, we seem to be Ashkenazim, on Shabbat night, we cut the bottom one. But day, or on Yom Tov, day or night, we cut the top challah. Okay, so it's a Kabbalistic reason. I'm not sure what's the reason. He writes it's based on a Kabbal idea. Yeah, that's it. So now we have a rule of ein ma'avirin al ha-mitzvah, which means if I have a mitzvah in front of me, I can't leave this mitzvah and do a different mitzvah. I'll give you an example which we actually see every day. Excuse me, please. Me? Every day we put on talis and they don't fill in, right? What do we put first? The talit, right? What happens if I first take the tefillin? Am I allowed to put them down and then take the talit? So the answer is no. Ein ma'averin ala mitzvot. As soon as I have a mitzvah in my hand, which I'm planning to do right now, I need to do the mitzvah in that thing. So if I have the talit in my hand, if I have the tefillin in my hand, I can't put the tefillin down and then put the talit on. I need to put the talit on. I need to put the tefillin on first and then the talit. That's why if you see many people, make sure that in the bag, the talit is closer to them. That way they'll always first touch the talit. Okay, so there's a rule of ein ma'averin al hamitzvot. I have a mitzvah, don't take it away. There's a few exceptions of that. One of them is the tefillin of the hand and the head. That we learn from the Torah that first we put the talit, the tefillin of the hand, and then we put the tefillin of the head. Even if I mistake, I first took the tefillin of the head, put it down, and take the tefillin of the hand. Anyway, so we see an example of ein ma'averin al hamitzvot. I have a mitzvah in front of me. You can't take it away and say, okay, I'm going to do something else, and that's a mitzvah. Let's do it. Why is it connected to here? One has two chalas in his hand. Which challah is closer to him? Well, the top one, right? The top one is closer to him, right? So which one should he cut? Also the top one. So how on the nighttime, how is it that we say, okay, you know what? Put the top one aside and then cut the bottom one. Okay, so obviously the Achronim, the rabbis asked it, and they said, that's what I do. Can I use the phone a second? Much. So I put the top one a bit further away from me and the bottom one a bit closer to me. Okay, so I hold it like this, and then I just put the top one like this, and I just take the bottom one closer to me and I cut it to me. That way, the bottom one is always closer to me, and that's what the Taz right to do. So maybe it shows us that every small thing we do has meaning. We aren't animals, and we think of everything we do. Just a small example. So, the nighttime we cut the bottom one, and we hold it close to us. We mentioned last week that there's an argument between the Rishonim to have to cut both loaves of bread or just one of them. Shulchan Aruch, rice, as we just read, you cut one, just the bottom one. And the Rashba and some other Achronim, the Gra and others said, you should cut both of them. Okay, so there's opinions. If you see people who cut only one, that's a common minhag. If you see people who prefer to cut two, so you should know they have a base to them. There's an interesting minhag here, which I'm not sure if you've ever seen. Have you ever eaten at a person who's a Hasidic person? So many Hasidim go by the Ari. And the Ari, based on Kabbalah, he wrote that and also resembles the 12 loaves of bread that I think you mentioned last week. Where do we have 12 loaves of bread connected to Shabbat? You mentioned maybe many. Lechem Hapanim. Right? Lechem Hapanim, every Shabbat, they used to put in new loaves of bread. So on Shabbat, we have Lechem Hapanim, so 12, number 12. Basic ideas, so the 12 Shvatim, and other reasons. So the Ari wrote that on each meal, one should have 12 loaves of bread in front of him. Now, they don't need to be big loaves of bread. It can even be bread rolls. And it's interesting, according to the Ari, that they're in front of you. Both of them are in front of you. But then when you say the bracha, you hold only two. Okay, so that's a Kabbalistic idea, the Ari. If you see someone who does it, so also you should know that has a base to it. Usually we don't do it. But I was thinking to myself, maybe we lived in Memphis, as you know, and there's a bakery there called Ricky's Cookies. Yeah. So best friends, Ricky's Cookies. And she sells bread rolls, right? And she sells 2 dozens. She sells a dozen of each bag has a dozen, especially for the Hasidim. Yeah. I'm not sure if that's the reason, but it must be the reason. And that's the reason why she sells 1 dozen for the Hasidim, so they can have 12 breads. Anyway, that's the minhag of the Hasidim. We are knowing just which is interesting to know. Okay. Usually, we can move to the next halacha. The main meal used to be the bread. And when someone cuts bread, if he takes like a huge chunk of the bread, it looks like someone who's into eating. On Shabbos, we say that part of the reason for eating 2 loaves of bread is to show that Shabbat is a special day. Today, we eat more, the eating is holy. So on Shabbat, a person is allowed to eat a big chunk of bread, cut a big off a big chunk of bread. There's a myth which doesn't have any source. The calories aren't counted on Shabbat. So it's true, the calories aren't counted on Shabbat as long as you make sure during the week to eat less. Otherwise, they actually count. Yeah. In those days, he used to eat less in the week, a lot on Shabbat, and that was used to even himself. Okay. Maybe before we go into the next stage, I will go a bit to the Achronim. You mentioned here about 2 whole breads, not whole breads. Okay. Do we need a whole bread? So we see already from the Gemara and other pieces that bread needs to be whole. Bread needs to be whole, shlemot. We always look for shlemot. When do we see it many times? On Pesach. Pesach, what tends to break very often? Matzot tend to break very often. And you buy 3 shlemot, 3 whole matzot, and you don't look after them so well, and you come home and aren't shlemot. So the question is, what is considered shalem? Or more questions. The same as Ricky Complete, that she used to sell the bread rolls she used to sell. They used to touch each other and connected, so you had to separate them. When you separate that, a bit gets cut off. Is it still considered shalem or no? Or maybe the opposite. We have a pull-apart challah. You know what the pull-apart challah is? Yes, so you have a pull-apart challah. It's made out of thin pieces. Is this considered as 1 piece of bread, or is that considered as 15 pieces of bread? Okay, why? When I take a pull-apart challah, do I have to have 2 pull-apart challahs, or is it enough to have 1? Because out of many, many small challahs. Let's start with the pull-apart challah. I think that has a simple answer. When you buy the pull-apart challah, how do you buy it as? 1 challah, called 1 challah. It's baked. The purpose of baking it is that it sticks together. Right? So that's considered 1 challah. And if you have a pull-apart challah, you need to take another piece of bread. What about the challahs when they touch each other in the oven? And then you separate them, and usually a small piece falls off. Is that considered shalem or no? That whole? And the answer is yes. It is still considered a whole challah. Even if a small piece fell off, it's still considered a whole challah. And many chalot of them are cholits and have hard crust. And those hard white chalot with the hard crust, many times it doesn't stay whole. Something touches it, a few crumbs fall off. Is it considered the whole challah? Yes. Okay. When small crumbs fall off, that's considered a whole challah. And some even gave a definition of 1 out of 48 fell if it's still part of a whole challah. But for sure, when you go to a shop and you ask the person, is this the whole challah? Yes, the whole challah. Well, you can see it's missing here and here and here. No, it's a whole challah. It's a whole challah. The same comes for matzah. Okay? They hold the whole challah. Matzah. Sometimes the matzah really does break, and you can see it's broken. And that's for Pesach, but a way to do it is you take a match or a lighter, and you burn the edge of the matzah. By burning the edge of the matzah, you make it whole again. That'd be interesting. Burn the edge of the matzah where it broke. And by burning it, just the edges, you make it whole again. What's the logic of that? Yeah. What's the logic of it? If I have only 1 matzah, I can take the matzah to 2, but cut it, and then burn it, and then I have a whole matzah. No. And the logic of it is, when I say to you to take 2 loaves of bread, how much is a loaf of bread? Pound, 1 cup. How much is a loaf of bread? It does have. I think the largest challah in the world, I think, is 11 meters. Okay, the baked, I think, I'll show you a special way. Does that need to be a whole challah? No. Okay, a challah is something which looks whole. Okay? And when I have a matzah which is broken and the edges are burnt, how does it look? Whole. So that's a whole matzah. That's a whole matzah. if I burn it, so lichora, yes. Typically, the skin refer more to small pieces being broken. If it still looks whole, so it's whole. Okay. What about let's have a challah which broke to two many times in the homemade challahs. So you hold it by mistake and oops, it breaks. So according to many poskim, you can take a toothpick. Maybe it's better to have a bigger stick. You stick it inside the bread and connect it, and it looks like one. Okay, it looks like one. So you can see here that it's not just the idea of having a definition, more the way it looks like one. It looks like one challah, and you say, wow, how does that come? I know it's not a challah. If I eat it like that, my teeth will meet a toothpick in the wrong direction of meeting a toothpick, not during challah. And I think we mentioned a bit last week that what's the idea of having two loaves of bread? Two. So usually we have only one loaf of bread, right? Two shows today is something special. It's a special day. Even the bread is blessed. There's more bread. And when you have something which is cut to two pieces, when it looks like one piece, it looks like one piece. You're honoring Shabbat. It looks like one big challah. So that's the based on that. Some poskim say that's mainly if I don't have challah. Let's say I get late to the meal and I don't have a whole challah. There's no whole challah there. What do I do? So if I take two pieces of bread and I say hamotzi on that, I'm also yotze Lechem Mishneh. The Natziv writes it. And that's it. The Rabbi, what's the idea? It's not a whole bread. There's two. Usually, how many pieces of bread will I take? One. By taking two pieces of bread, I'm showing that Shabbat is elevated than the rest of the weekdays. So it should be two whole loaves of bread, and it should be and it look like whole. If I don't have two whole pieces of bread, I can take two slices. Now here comes the question. Okay, I have one challah. What's better, to take one challah or cut it to two, and I have two pieces of bread? The challah piece of it also could be better than nothing. But let's say I have only one challah. Should I now cut this challah and I have two, or should I leave it as a whole piece of bread? Now let's think of the logic of honoring Shabbat. Usually, what's more honored? A whole loaf. I have usually a whole loaf looks nicer. And if I now cut it to two, I'm playing a trick with myself. Right? I know it was one piece of bread. And usually a whole piece is nicer than a broken piece. And here I'm playing as if it's two pieces. So if a person has only one challah, he should not cut it to two and pretend he has two pieces. Some poskim write that maybe someone else will do it for him. He'll take the challah away. Now there's no challahs at the table at all. Up to zero, no challahs. And he brings it back and says, oops, you have two slices of bread. Okay, that's some poskim, right? But in any case, it's better to have a whole challah than to slice it. Okay, so that's regarding the whole challah or sliced challah. I'm continuing in Seif Gimel. And before we go into Seif Gimel, let's put a question in mind. You do hamotzi at the table, right? You give a slice to your wife. How many slices does she get? One. Does she say a bracha? No. She gets only one slice. I give a slice of challah to my son. How many slices does he get? One. Afterwards, he'll want more, but now he has only one, right? Where is Lechem Mishneh? I need Lechem Mishneh. What about the rest? Now, to bring it to more of a question, we have something called a definition. I don't know if we mentioned it in the past. I think we did. mitzvah shebegufo means a mitzvah which I am supposed to do with my body. I'm supposed to do the mitzvah with my body. For example, tefillin. Who's supposed to put on tefillin? I'm supposed to put on tefillin with my body. Can I make a shaliach? Can I ask someone to put on tefillin on himself in his name, on my name? No, why not? He'll have tefillin and he'll put tefillin for me. No, right? There's a rule that mitzvah shebegufo, any mitzvah we should do with our body. So there's no shaliach in it. I can't ask someone else to do it for me. That's a typical halacha. We see it in many, many examples. Other mitzvot which aren't mitzvah shebegufo. The idea is just for it to be done. No matter who I'm supposed to put my effort in it. So I can ask someone else to do it for me. That may be a questionable, but typical example is, do you have a son? You have a son, right? Who did the Brit? Fine?
No,
Rav Nata. Rav Nata, bring that. Wow.
And my son.
Wow, that's good. Okay, to have Rav Nata doing for you. That's really good. He was an amazing person. So anyway, the mitzvah is the Mishneh in Kiddushin. The father needs to do a brit for his son, but most people don't do the brit. They do a shaliach. How could it be? They aren't doing it. So a typical answer will be that it's not a mitzvah shebegufo. A father doesn't need to do with his body the mitzvah. And the mitzvah shebegufo is the son needs to have a brit milah, and the father needs to make sure it happens. How does it happen? By the mohel, so he makes him a shaliach. What about eating the bread? What about eating the bread? Usually we eat the bread. I eat the bread. Yeah, I can't tell someone, look, you eat for me. It doesn't work like that. So how come when we eat the bread, so we have only one slice? Let's read the Shulchan Aruch, and then we'll go in it, and we will see that there used to be a custom. Some people had two breads in front of them. The people around the table aren't allowed to eat the bread until the person doing a motzi, until he tastes. He has a bite. So first, the person who does a motzi needs to have a bite, and then the rest of the people. If each one has two rolls in front of him, they can hear the bracha from him. And as soon as he said the bracha, he's busy cutting. They can now take a bite from their own. And when I was a child, so in our shul, we used to have Seudah Shlishit. Each person used to have two small. Some of the people had two loaves of bread in front of them. The rabbi had two big challahs. He used to say motzi until he cut. So other people could take a bite from their own challahs. So what's that? If I have two challahs in front of me, so I don't need to wait for the person doing the bracha. I can take a bite. If I'm waiting, I don't have two challahs in front of me, so I need to wait until he has a bite. That's general halacha. Okay, even if he passes fast and for some reason he didn't eat still, I need to wait for him to eat, and only then I will eat. Maybe from here we can also see an idea which the rabbis do bring, that when the person doing hamotzi, when he says the bracha, he's also doing it for me. He's saying the bracha for me, but also he's holding a Lechem Mishneh for me. And I'm yotze in his Lechem Mishneh. For the fact that he has two Lechem Mishneh in his hand, I'm yotze by it. Now you can ask 1 second. I ate only one slice, right? I ate only one slice. How does it work? How does it work? Let's go back. One more halakha in Shulchan Aruch, which we read already, and then we'll answer it. That according to Rashi and other Rishonim and the Shulchan Aruch, when I have a Lechem Mishneh, it doesn't mean I need to cut both of them. It means I hold both of them when I say the bracha, and I open only one. So why do I have two? What's the point of having two and then you cut only one? Yeah, it's like being a big steak to the table and say, no, you know what? You can't have this. You're getting the salad. What's the point of having two? It's the idea to show that Shabbat is different. So when you say a bracha on 2 loaves of bread, according to the Ari, when I have in front of me 12 loaves of bread, it shows that Shabbat is different. You then eat as much as you want, and you don't need to eat from both of them. But when I say the bracha of hamotzi, I'm showing the bracha of hamotzi on Shabbat. That's a special bracha. The same when I'm sitting around the table, and the Balabait who says Amotzi, he has in his hand 2 loaves of bread. Okay, 2 loaves of bread. So, so since he has 2 loaves of bread, the bracha will sit on 2 loaves of bread, and I'm around the table, so it's fine. The whole purpose is not for me to eat from 2 loaves of bread, but to show that the challah, this loaf of bread, came from a more special place. There's even some poskim who went in more to the extreme. We try not to follow, but they even said, let's say the wife is in the kitchen. Okay, the husband there's many guests. Has to wait for him for some reason. Not a good idea. For shalom bite, you should wait for your wife to come. But he does says hamotzi. He doesn't wait for her. She comes, takes this piece of bread, then says hamotzi. Okay. Some poskim will even say, although she said hamotzi on a slice, since this slice in the end came from 2 challahs, in the end it shows that Shabbat is more special and the loaf of bread is more special. So she's Yosef. They say we try to wait for everyone, and many poskim said, wait for everyone to come around the table, only then sing a bracha. One more halacha before we finish. Shulchan Aruch writes that the meal of the nighttime and the meal of the daytime must be done with bread. If you Shlit, when we learn about it, there's a machloket, do we need bread, don't we need bread? But for the night meal and the day meal, we for sure need bread. This is, we have one more moment for a bit. Here comes another question. I'm now at the Kiddush. I'm eating rogalach at the Kiddush. Rogalach is like a cake. It's a kind of bread. Do I need to take 2 rogalachim and put them together and say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei minei mazonot, or no? So some people say maybe yes, but don't do it in public. If you don't do it in public, it's your hara, it's showing your special, you're a real chassid. There's no real need to do it. And if a person does do it, so at least not to do it when other people notice him. The main the idea of Lechem Mishneh is when we're eating bread, not when we're eating other things like cake. The main idea is bread. And after here, Bezrat Hashem, next week we're starting a new topic. Where can I get? Oh,